Welcome to the space between heaven on earth. This is a companion podcast to Awakening Heaven on Earth, created as a space for reflection, conversation, and lived experience. Here, we enter the pause between knowing and becoming, between insight and embodiment, between heaven and earth. These conversations are not about answers or conclusions. They are about presence, about listening, about reasoning together, about meeting one another honestly in the unfolding journey of awakening. I'm your host, Jeffrey Aylor. Again, welcome and thank you for entering the space between with us. Welcome. In the earlier episodes of this series, we've explored unity as a universal belonging, as connection, and as the dissolving of separation between ourselves and the world around us. So much more of a outside focus to unity and connection. Today, the questions are going to be more intimate. We're turning inward toward the idea of our personal unity with God, the source of all being. This isn't a conversation about theology, about doctrine, or defining specifically what God is meant to be, but it is a conversation about presence, about the moments when the sense of me becomes less concrete and something deeper feels more subtly present beneath it. So I'm grateful to be joined again by my friend Joe Dermody, my son Joel Aylor. Welcome, gentlemen. So each of us, as we say, approach this from this idea of source from a different place, through questioning, through our experience, through silence and reflection. It feels meaningful to hold this space between with you guys here. And before we move into the reflection questions, I'd really love to invite each one of you to share, when you hear the phrase source of all being, what does it stir up in you? Not as an idea or a concept, but as a feeling or a sense.
For me, it love, just love and awe. I think that sums it up for me. It's love and a big sense of awe.
Yeah, I mean, love's obviously a big one. Definitely not something that you can name or define. It's definitely it's basically just almost a feeling of energy within myself and a connection to the world that I'm in. That's I don't know, just it's a connection. It's a feeling. It's just a knowing. It's not necessarily anything that's easy to define or point to it and say, here it is. So
I love the word energy. That's a great word too. Yeah, that sums up a lot of it too.
Yeah.
Well, I know, in my experience, obviously, we believe that God is love. That was a definition, right? Comes right out of Scripture. God is love, and God is spirit. Spirit is not seen, so God has to be something other than a physical creature or being. And I really have come to understand that God is the underlying energy of the universe and all creation. And it's interesting because that same energy, and Joe, I think you used the word creator, is creative. The very energy is creative. Creative energy. When we feel creative energy, that is God in us moving. And it's really made that become significantly more sacred to me, because you can feel the energy in your body moving. And if anybody's ever wondered what what God might feel like or be like, to me, that's what I'm coming to sum up as the presence within us. And I do believe that God is within us. I don't, I was raised to believe that God was out there somewhere in some distant place, and we were separated from God, and we're not. To understand that He's not only present in me, but He's present in you, because we all come from that same source. And it should make us look at each other differently. So with that, let's take some time and jump into these reflection questions. I really want to gently describe how we approach these. Again, the questions aren't meant to take us towards some specific, definitive understanding. They're meant to bring us into noticing an awareness, right, of what's already here inside of us or beneath our thoughts and our experience and our words. It's meant to stir up our pure minds and guide us so that we can reason together. Again, my background, and I have to apologize to all the people who've known me all my life, to have been so dogmatic and think that the way I believed about things was the way. I apologize, because I'm learning that that's certainly not the case. And I need to be open, because there are many people who have deeper or better understanding about many of these things than I do. So, and that's what I love about these conversations and the sharing is your perspective. I gain a lot from hearing it and from listening to the way you're processing this yourself. So with that in mind, let's jump into the first reflection question. So when I use the word God, what am I actually pointing toward? A belief, an image, a memory, or a presence I can see beneath those things?
I think that it's all of those things. I think that it's a memory of what we were taught. It's the image of what we've read and seen in church growing up. But in a simple answer, yes. In a more complex answer, for me, it's a belief. For me, it's a belief. I don't have anything concrete of a personal experience where I can say I've felt a direct connection. Like I haven't had a huge experience yet where I've had I want to call it that direct connection. I've seen evidence through life around us, right, that makes me believe. I've seen things that I can't explain that definitely makes me believe. So I am 100% a believer. But you hear these stories of, well, I've had these things in my head, right? So because I've put some thought into this, right? I haven't had a direct experience where I can say that this has happened. So I have I've seen it. So I've witnessed it and I can explain this story. So for me, it has to just be a belief.
You're trying to use your logical mind to describe something.
It's
hard to do. For me, the word God used to point to an idea, something that was outside of me that I tried to understand or approach. To me, it was when I was young. It was there's an old man sitting on a throne with gray hair and long beard and watching over everything I did and everything I thought about. It's kind of unnerving when you think about it. It's kind of a creepy, scare-based way of approaching the divine. But over time, that shifted big time. Now it points more towards a presence that's almost there prior to a belief in it. Something that's there before I name it. Or when I say God, I'm no longer pointing outward or upward. I'm more looking inward and within myself. That was a big paradigm shift, because the vast majority of Christianity, thinks of God and heaven as being out there and something we're obtaining or we're getting to after this life, as if this life isn't important. But everything that Jesus said in his own scripture, in those scriptures, was saying everything was within. So to start to search for God within was a big shift for me, and that's definitely where I've come to experience it more.
Well, I have to say, for me, it's obvious that God historically for me has been an image.
Mm-hmm.
I think much of art,
yeah,
especially during the Renaissance period, was trying to create images that represent God. I think of the painting in the Sistine Chapel, right, of Adam and God, and their fingers are touching, and just as you describe God as an old gray-haired man that sits on a throne and is judging you continually, whether you're doing good things or bad things, and is always just waiting for you to slip up.
Yep.
Right? And at least that image was one that helped you consider him as a father figure in some ways, right? So if you look at your father as a nurturing image, then that would be good. But if maybe you have a bad image of a father, that could be bad, right? Maybe you look at that in a bad way. And I think it's interesting because across all the different traditions, there's different names that people have. In fact, among the Taoists, they say that the source cannot be named.
Right. As soon as you name it, that's not it.
As soon as you name it, it's not it, because it's unfathomable, it's unnameable.
Right.
And it takes so many different forms. But I do believe, as I was kind of mentioning in our opening comments, that God really is the creative energy of all of the universe. So energy, now, to Joe's point, is probably the way I would consider and describe his presence in me. It's feeling, anytime I feel that surge, that creative surge of energy inside my body, I know what that is now. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't, and waste it, right? And they don't harness that, and they don't. I can honestly say that as this work has all come together, I have had the opportunity to experience that energy very directly in downloads. I mean, it has come in massive downloads, and it's exhilarating. It's an exhilarating feeling. So anyway, to me, that when I use the word God today, to your point, Joel, it's different than it was. But today, to me, God is energy. He's the energy that exists in all creation, not just people, all creation.
Yep.
Everything is energy. Everything is energy. I know when we look at things and we think that they're solid, they are not solid. We'll talk about this a lot more as we get into all the content of the books, because in fact, there's one book called Energy that we will dive into energy deeply, because it is the source. It is.
So, as we go through these, I think I've just learned that, first of all, I don't speak as well as I want to be able to speak. My mind just doesn't work as well as I want it to work.
Same.
It's going to get better, right? I know it's going to get better the more I do this and the more I can self-reflect on this. But I think it is my logical mind too that I think gets in my way of the creativity that I know is there. But I think I just need to let you guys answer. One of you answer first, so that I can start getting my thoughts in order here too, because it helps me. But so by hearing what you guys get to say too, I don't want to say ditto, right? But I do get to hear what you say, and it helps me understand. I think I have put a lot of thought into it. And when you guys say, thinking about God, so I'm sorry to backtrack just a little bit, but the image of God, not only as a fatherly figure, right? These images of God sitting on a throne, an old man, but you also have all the other, God images of even the Greek gods and things like that people used, the other sources, and then they used all kinds of images in the past. you also had Mother Earth. You had all kinds of other representations. So it did go from these images, and then the flowing of that to the energy that I now feel. So I do feel a lot of energy, and I have the belief, and I can feel the differences of energy when I stop to slow down, when I stop to do my meditations, when I go to work out, when I sleep. So to Jeff, your point with the downloads, I think God is now more of a energy and knowledge based entity, right? The creator of all, which even goes back to, I know you and I have had some discussions in the past about, some of the Akashic records and whatnot too. Maybe that is also, it is, I believe, a part of.
Oh, I totally
creation.
agree with you. I think God as the source is if you've not heard of the Akashic records, some people that comes from the Hindu religion primarily, right? It's a Sanskrit name, but it's basically the universal database of all things throughout all time, past, present, and future. I think that's what Lynn McTaggart is referring to when she talks about the field in her book, Field.
Yep.
That there is this massive store of intelligence.
And it's everywhere. It's not just in a spot. It's literally everywhere.
All right. And so one of the names that I'm becoming much more comfortable using when I describe God is divine intelligence, infinite intelligence, and that wisdom, right? That's that. Now, you could be intelligent and not be wise, because wisdom requires action. It's intelligence and knowledge and action. And I think God is the source of all wisdom beyond intelligence, right? And to me, God also, because of spirit, we are made up, I believe, of mind, body, and spirit. And I believe the spirit within us, which you cannot see, is born of God, right? It is God's essence in us living through a human form. And I believe our body comes from the earth. I think the earth is our mother. That has been a big revelation for me. And this is what I love about this podcast, is that between heaven, spirit, and earth, body, there is the ability to reason and think. And when those two things come together, it can be an absolutely beautiful thing. If they fight against each other, life can be full of trouble and turmoil. Right? So what I like about the Space Between is a podcast between awakening, which is really focused on that spiritual elements in many cases, and the other podcast that we've just launched this last week called Living, is we go from head knowledge to experience and application and applying it and using wisdom in that. Yeah, God is a much bigger concept to me than ever before. And God does not judge. We touched on judgment in our last discussion. God doesn't judge. That Father we talk about, who we think is sitting on that throne, judging us every day, and you've done good, you've done bad, punish, reward. That's not God. God does not judge.
No, that's ego.
That's the ego, totally the ego. And if there is a God out there who's doing that, it's not the God I'm worshiping now.
No.
I do believe there is a lesser God that people worship that does have that form and does have that image. That has probably been the most profound change in where I've come from over the last 5 or 6 years, is I have come to realize that I really wasn't worshiping what I now believe to be the true God or source. I was worshiping a lesser God, the God of this world, who does have all those characteristics of a father sitting on a throne and judging and being jealous and being I mean, that really is what I see in the God that's in the Old Testament. And now that I look back at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder that didn't feel very good when I would read about that God and the things that he was asking people to do and not do. And that incongruity between that and what I was feeling was a good thing because it helped me see, wait a minute, there's something, I'm missing something here in my understanding and I need to figure it out. So let's go ahead, Joe.
I was just saying, it's better that you actually noticed that and asked the questions and found some other source of truth. A lot of people basically, instead of searching when they have that uncomfortable feeling, they just basically go back into what's comfortable and try to make everything fit what they already believe. So that's, being open and being willing to change your views if it doesn't line up with what you're reading or what you're feeling is part of the awakening process. So
when you start to see things align, to me, it's like swimming with the current as opposed to swimming against current.
Well, life is supposed to flow like a river. Yeah.
Oh, it's just flowing and things just move and it feels so much more pleasant. And yeah, so
we're not supposed to resist it. So go with it.
So here's a good question. Can I notice and sense an essence of being that exists before my thoughts, my roles, and my story? And what does that awareness feel like?
Yes, and it's subtle. It doesn't announce itself. If you can, almost essentially, it's basically it's like the observer behind the thought is kind of what you have to kind of find, and it's a spacious, quiet space. That's your true self. The thoughts that creep into your head, those aren't you. That's just your mind talking, and it never stops. So you can feel the awareness behind that, but you have to basically be still and ground yourself and be in quiet, turn off the senses, which is a big thing that I had to learn how to do. And when you do that, you can feel your awareness in the absolute infinite space that you exist in, not just in this body, but much bigger. But like I said, it's very subtle, and you basically have to learn how to shut down this body in order to kind of see the awareness behind it.
I was in the recommended readings that will come out later this next week on this topic. There are several really, really good books that we touch on. We introduce people who may not be exposed to Eckhart Tolle and to Michael Singer and the Untold.
That's a good one. Yeah, Michael Singer's a good one.
And Michael Singer, I think, does a really nice job of saying who is it that you're hearing when you have,
who are you talking to in your head?
Talking to in your head,
right? It's like having a noisy roommate that you allow to talk all the time.
So Joe has been reading Laura Lynn Jackson, who I just think a great deal above, and she talks about that frontal lobe of the brain, calls it the monkey mind.
It's what the Hindus call it. It's the monkey mind.
I'm talking. I think of that. There was a great commercial. It was a person in a job interview, and they're sitting in front of the person that's interviewing them, and they've got a spot on their white shirt, and the spot is talking, blah, 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 blah. And they can't, the person who's interviewing can't even hear the interviewee because this spot is annoying them. Mm-hmm. They can't get their mind off of it. Well, that's sometimes how I think our thoughts are.
Yep.
And people believe they are their thoughts.
They identify with them.
Yeah. And we aren't our thoughts. We're the observer of our thoughts. Mm-hmm. This is why in the book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl talks about the fact that we have the ability to stop between a stimulus or a thought and a response, because we have to realize, wait a minute, where'd that thought come from? Well, to me, thoughts are like radio waves or television signals. The thoughts sometimes that come in your mind aren't even yours. Those are signals that can be planted in your mind from outside.
Oh yeah, conditioning, training, any of it.
You think they're yours, and they're not.
No, you've been taught that.
And you've got these stories of your life that says, well, I'm a this and I'm a that. And And because of the stories we create with these thoughts, that's what gives thoughts meaning, by the way, is the story around it for your life that, and the roles that we play, because we think in many cases that we're our roles. And one of the things I like about Michael Singer in The Untethered Soul, he also talks about the fact that we're not our body, we are not our name.
We're not our profession. We're not, yeah.
You're not your role, your job role.
Right.
I know a lot of people that their whole identity is wrapped up in the work they do.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of their work, they don't have any sense of being or meaning. That's where their sense of worth comes from. And this is liberating to me when you realize that we are to be in control of our thoughts and to question the thoughts. A lot of them are like clouds. It's another great description I've seen. The sky is basically the same all the time, but clouds will come and clouds will go. Storms will come. Things will come and go. And you just have to let them go. Don't hold on to them. They're temporary, and they're not yours to possess, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I find people who think they are their thoughts and they think that their thoughts are real, and they get anxious over their thoughts, or if their thoughts are about the past, and they create depression and various things within themselves because they can't let go of something that's not real anymore. It's over. It's done. It's past. This is where Eckhart Tolle, I think, in The Power of Now really helps you to understand, wait a minute, the only thing that exists today and in reality is right now. The past is gone. The future isn't there. The only thing that is real is right now. Joe and I were having a conversation. He is a Lego aficionado. He loves to do Lego models, and these things are complicated and they're big and they've got all these pieces. But when you're doing something creative like that, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's Legos, what's beautiful about that, number one, is that you're using your creative energy. Remember I said, I believe God is creative. His energy is creation, and we are co-creators. That energy gets focused on the now, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing that, you can't be thinking about the past or the future. So it tends to help people that are suffering from depression or from anxiety. If someone starts to feel anxiety coming on or depression coming on, do something creative. Do something creative. Listen to music. Paint a picture. Draw. Do something. Put Legos together, right? It's anything that can stir up the creative energy that then allows you to be present with God in that moment.
Well, and what I love about Legos even more is it will help those that feel that they're not creative. So somebody like, for instance, me, I have that engineering mind, right? So I don't think of myself as creative, right? I can't draw. I can sing, but I'm not musically inclined to go play an instrument. So a lot of engineers don't see themselves, for instance, as creative. They think of themselves only as logical. So we tend a lot more to things like Legos. But Legos are very creative, even if you're following the book or instructions, putting things together, putting an IKEA piece of furniture together where you're following instructions step by step by step. That is still creative. You're building. You are putting something together. Even if you're not designing it yourself, you're still putting something together. Do something to get your mind out of thinking in the future or in the past. Just like you said, do something in the now, in the present. Get out of your own head.
Constructive, not destructive.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct.
Right. Yeah. It's constructive. It's not destructive.
Right.
And I don't know, to me, that's been an epiphany. And so all of us know people who suffer from anxiety or depression because their mind is so heavily impacted by thought, and they think that they are their thought, that they can't stop or control that thought, right? And I do believe that, and I actually think it was Laura Lynn Jackson in one of her books who made that comment about do something creative. Because when you do something creative, it will put you in the now.
It is, yeah.
puts you right in the now, which is where God is. It's where your true being is. And it helps center you.
Allows that connection to happen.
So what happens when you allow yourself not to specifically manage or define or grasp in some concrete way this concept of source, but you just simply let it sit in your mind and in your knowing?
For me, it's relief. For me, it's just the feelings of stress, anxiety, worry, any of that can just fall apart, can fall off, and you can just sit in that presence, in that moment, in that space. You don't have to do anything or be anything. It's just a feeling of oneness. It's a feeling of connection with everything. It's a feeling of love and belonging. It's, like I said, it's subtle, especially at the beginning, and it requires practice, just like any other type of exercise or training or anything you want to be good at. You have to practice it over and over to get there easier, to hold it longer, because the mind, like we said, doesn't stop talking. And thoughts will come in. It'll try to define it. It'll try to put it in a queue. Well, what are you experiencing now? What's this? Is this it? Are you sure? And it'll ask lots of questions, and it doesn't stop. And you have to learn to basically ignore it, or train that monkey to sit still, sit on the stool and just be still while you're in that space. It's not easy, but it is worth it. Anytime I've ever sat in meditation and was able to sit long enough to get into that stillness, it is always worth it.
So this is one of the things that I've always had the biggest thing I've had a problem with is trying to meditate and to not have to know and put everything in its place.
Yeah.
So, but it is also one of the coolest experiences that I am starting to have. And for me, it is eye-opening, right? So I'm finally getting to the place where
that's third eye opening.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is. Yeah. And it's the thing that makes me want to take that next step to start making big changes. Right. So yeah, I'm starting to get more comfortable. I want to see what's next. It makes me want to sit still and see what's out there. It's making me explore new things, and it's fantastic.
I know for me, as I've read many, many books on all these topics, there's one consistent theme, and that is meditation. Mm-hmm. The only way to truly connect with God within you is through stillness and quiet. Even in the Christian scriptures, it talks about the still small voice of God. And I always like to wonder, well, what's God's voice sound like? And I think Neil Donald Walsh, in the Conversations with God, he talks about, well, God sounds an awful lot like me when he talks to me. Because God is me. God is in me. And the only way, I think, to shut down that monkey mind is through meditation. It probably is, and we'll touch on this a lot in Living Heaven on Earth, the practice of meditation. There's a lot of different types. There's a lot of different styles. It's intimidating to a lot of people. But it is the most educational position you can put yourself in. I can remember when I first started, I was using an app, and the app I thought did a very good job of helping you understand you're not your thoughts. Because I was actually sitting in a dark room, and all these thoughts are going through my head while I'm sitting there trying to be still. And I'm thinking about what those images are, and those images were not real because you know what? I was sitting in a dark room. I was not actually doing or seeing what was going through my mind. Those thoughts were not real. So once you realize that and you say, wait a minute, okay, and not only that, but I'm hearing that thought. I'm the observer. Joel made that comment early. When you position yourself in stillness, you begin to recognize, wait a minute, I'm the listener. I'm the observer of these things. And that essence within you is the God essence in you.
And what you're trying to do is just pull yourself into the now.
Yeah.
You're trying to find the spacious moment right now that exists always. And it's hard to do in your mind. What it's trying to do is it's time traveling. Your mind is time traveling. You can create in your own head inside without actually being in the physical space or at that time. You can time travel back to a moment in time and be there. You can see it. You can feel it. You can hear it.
So,
but it's not real. Like you said, it's not real. And it distracts you from this moment that you have right now.
You know, it's funny you say that because we would call that imagination.
Sure.
Right? That you're imagining yourself.
That would be the future. Imagination would be the future.
So Joe and I have talked about a couple different experiences people have that are what we would consider altered state. One of them is an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when they're having an out-of-body experience, can do what's called astral travel.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you and I and others who travel different places there are certain places you love that you can take yourself there
right now,
right there in your mind.
Yeah.
And the question is, are you really there?
Mentally.
Mentally, you are there in that place and you're experiencing it. You can even sense it. The sounds, the smells.
You can even simulate taste. Right. You can remember how something tastes, and all of a sudden in your mind, you taste it.
You're tasting it.
You're not actually physically tasting it,
right.
But the memory of it still is tied to the memory. It's all tied together, and you can actually experience it again, which is a cool thing. It's one of the most amazing things we have the ability to do. It's just when those become your reality, when you attach everything to that moment in time or can't get past that stuck point, that's when it becomes a problem.
Time's relative too. That's a whole nother topic.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's all. You know, if your mind's able to go back and forth in time so easily, it's showing it right there. It's pretty relative.
It's fascinating to me that we can go backward in our mind, to Joel's point, and time travel backward into experiences that we've had, good, bad. There are alternative realities, I believe, to those things that we've experienced. And there are dimensions of that alternative reality that exist that you can tap into. And then
or even pull in.
Or
yeah. Pull it in and try to make it more your reality. Go down that path if that's the path. You're just basically pulling in another reality into your own.
And if I were to try to, because this is a concept that's really difficult to fathom, right? But if I were to describe it using something a lot of people can put their mind around, it would be a video game.
Yeah.
If you think about it, every potential situation that could be played in a video game exists on that one disc or in that one program. Whether it gets played or not, whether a situation gets played out in that process or experience or not, it's there. And you can actually, in a game, go back and replay that situation and come up with a different outcome.
Reload.
Are you saying we live in a simulation?
What a concept that might be.
That would be, yeah.
You want to go down a rabbit hole.
And there's another rabbit hole. See, there's lots of these. whether you call it rabbit holes or just basically things to learn about. So. Yeah, you're just seeing basically, this conversation we've had starting off is, gone into a little different area, but that's not a bad thing. They're all connected. It all makes your mind think of the next thing. Well, what about this? I had this experience or whatever.
Well, that's why I like when. Is it not connected though? In the sense that we are eternal. This is the other thing I think that through meditation you learn is that, first of all, I am not my temporary body. I am eternal. Silly me again. Sometimes when I'm in situations, I just want to test people's response to something. I'm like, next time I'm in a meeting and people ask you to introduce yourself, most people say, well, hey, I'm Jeff Aylor. I'm 62 years old and I am this role. Next time I think I'm going to say, hey, well, hey, I really don't know what my name is because I'm eternal. I've had many over all my lives. Just so happens that in this particular life, the body I'm in right now is 62 years old, and it's called Jeff Aylor. But my eternal name, I'm not exactly sure. It's I am.
You're going to have some serious physical looks on you there too. I mean, you're like, who's this guy and who invited him?
Well, that's what I mean.
I love it.
Wow. Wait a minute.
No, but I mean, that idea of being eternal, people struggle with that because they struggle with what eternity means, and especially when you tie it into a time reference.
Right.
Because if people they only can grasp beginning and endings, they don't realize just an always being, and it's very tough for people to say, yes, I'm eternal. They think that I started when I was born, had this lifetime, and then I'm going to have an eternal life after that, even though their minds can't even grasp that either. They're just comfortable with it.
But isn't that what so many people are looking for? They're looking.
They're trying to get into that club.
They're looking forward. Oh, I want to get eternal life. Well, if you don't have it already, you're never going to have it, because if it's eternal,
you never began, you never ended. It's just always, you just always are. Yeah,
always are. The essence.
But there are certain people. To your point, if you go into a meeting like that, you're going to make their heads explode. So,
yeah, that's fun.
What? it's going to short circuit the system, and they're not going to be able to process.
Well, but
like an old computer just can't. It tries, but it's like no. It don't have enough bandwidth, not enough RAM. Can't do that.
Yeah.
Hello, chicken and egg. I'm the frying pan.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, my point, but I was actually making a point when I brought that up, and that is that the same soul, the eternal soul, is the same being. It is connected in all those dimensions that it has existed in. We are connected in all of those lifetimes, all of those experiences. They're all connected. We're not separate from those things. And, there are a lot of people who, when they use meditation as a practice, they can do past life regression. They can do future visioning. They can do, because your higher self, which already exists and has already accomplished the things you're wanting to accomplish and do, it already has done it. And you can tap into that higher self, which is another dimension of yourself, and you can leap. In fact, that's called quantum leaping. When we get into quantum concepts, right? Which we'll touch on in future episodes as well, too. Joel made the comment that these episodes don't have to be just 35, 40, 45, 50 minutes. We could talk for hours and hours about, the top, because again, it's a domino, and there's all these different places you can dive into. But we're going to have a lot more conversation. So we keep them focused.
One of my favorite things you said, I don't remember if we touched on it here in a podcast or if it's just you and me talking, but prayer is you talking to God, and meditation is you listening to a response or answer. And that's just that made me really stop and think of it differently too, and how important that is. And it's not just meditation, because you can listen when you're sleeping. It's the quieting and shutting down of your physical mind, right? To let you stop to hear responses.
Yeah, people call it dissolving the ego. When you go to sleep at night, your ego goes, you separate. Mm-hmm. And that, and a lot of these people that we've been reading and studying about, all of them talk about ego. they all talk about, a lot of the people who experience psychic ability or mediumship, the way they get into that state is by shutting off the ego. Now, how nice would it be to think you can just flip a switch, right? And ego's gone. And now,
Or you're gonna be like Eckhart Tolle, who says he doesn't have an ego anymore. He pretty much doesn't ever entertain it. It'd be interesting to see if that's actually true. If he's just saying that.
well, a lot of the, for instance, I'm not somebody who thinks like some traditions do that your body is something you need to escape or that it's a prison. I actually think God gave you that body. He created it and it's beautiful and perfect. And there are experiences that we're supposed to have. And
He wants you to have the experiences of the senses.
Well, it's because he is experiencing it
With you. Yeah.
He's experiencing it through you.
Mm-hmm.
And so this whole idea of depriving yourself of certain things that the body was designed to experience that's a story, that's a belief, that's an idea.
That's making me different than somebody else.
Right.
I'm holier than you.
Right. So all of that,
the ego,
I think, is critical. But Joe, to your comment about communication requires a sender and a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
If a message is being sent and there's no one to receive it, then where's the message go? Right.
Yep.
And if someone is not sending, there is nothing to receive.
Well, and I struggle. I mean, just with you being over here the other day, you and I were just trying to talk to each other. And my beautiful, lovely daughters were just loud and rambunctious, and I was having a hard time hearing you. In order to actually, hear you and what you were saying, I needed them to calm down and be quiet. It's kind of like they were my monkey mind.
Yeah.
Okay. In order for me to actually hear you and get that message clearly in, I needed my monkey mind to be quiet. That's what meditation does. You learn how to be quiet. You learn how to quiet the mind so that you can receive the message that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I find, though, is that a lot of people, and I was this way when I first started practicing, it's not easy because we are so overstimulated. We are so distracted by our senses and quite honestly, I think that most people struggle with sitting.
So what I had to, struggling with themselves, but going to the senses, I would always purposely focus on a sense and see if I was sensing it any longer. No, so obviously I wasn't tasting anything. That one I can basically kind of focus in on the mouth and the tongue where you taste. Was I tasting anything in that moment? No. Was I thinking anything? No, my eyes were closed. I was in a dark room. Was I touching anything? I could feel my body against it, but eventually as you sit still long enough, you even lose the perception of your body feeling, sitting on your, cushion or on your chair. Hearing's the hardest one because it never actually turns off, which is why it's so important to go into quiet. Because any noise, you'll hear it. Hearing never turns off. Even wakes you up out of your dead sleep. Mm-hmm. You're completely asleep, and all of a sudden a loud noise happens. You're awake. It's the hardest one, but it's most important to be able to get into as quiet an environment as possible so that you can actually turn off the other senses to be in that space.
And I'm the opposite. I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a term for what you're describing called sensory deprivation.
Right.
We learned this in culinary school, that there are certain things you taste that once you've tasted it, you can't taste much more of it. It gets, sweetness is that way. Tartness is that way. So when you're touching something, you'll feel it initially, but if you keep touching it, eventually you don't feel that anymore. That sense of touch.
It goes into the subconscious or unconscious, more or less. Your body just stops.
Sensory deprivation, right? And to your point, hearing is that one sense that doesn't experience that. Mm-hmm. And I think this is what was meant by the saying, hearing, they do not hear. And even seeing, they do not see, but hearing, they do not hear, because you're so distracted by what you're hearing with your natural ear you can't hear the messages coming to your spiritual ears.
Right.
And learning to, the Bible talks about it all over: stillness, quietness, peace. Those terms, those concepts are all throughout it. And in every sacred text that we study in all this, that concept of stillness, quietness, so that you can connect with that source, that energy. And I just think some people, they misinterpret the source in them, because that energy can be perceived as lust. It could be perceived as desire. It can be perceived as all kinds of things, when in reality it's creation. It's just creative energy.
Mm-hmm.
And we label it as this, and we discharge it in this way, when in reality it's supposed to be harnessed. But to do that, you've got to consciously be aware of it and recognize it and manage it.
It comes back to awareness.
Yeah. Totally comes back.
Joe, you said you were opposite.
Yeah. So I have the hardest time blanking out or canceling out my hearing as well, because the minute that I find something quiet, I start hearing my heartbeat, and I can't stop that then, right? Nor should I. And when I'm out in a restaurant, that's the first thing that will start my anxiety or anything else that I have, is something loud going off, be it silverware at a restaurant, be it a kid crying or yelling. I can't block any of that out. I have the hardest time with it. So for me, when I meditate, I have to have something, music. Even if it's loud music, I can meditate better with loud music with a constant beat. It can't be words. It can't be anything with... Go ahead.
No, yeah, what you're saying is exactly what he was talking about with sensory deprivation. Essentially, you've got something that's constantly doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Eventually, your mind sees it and it's like, okay, it's there, but it's not important. It's not dangerous. It's okay to just ignore it.
Yep, that's right. So it's a white noise, but it has to be loud enough to drown everything else out. Yeah. So absolutely.
Yeah, fair.
So different strokes, right? Different.
Yeah, no, whatever works. Whatever there's more than one way to get there. There's not just one way.
Different paths, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Leading to the same point, and that is the ability to center inside yourself and sense and experience the source.
Well, I mean, that's just what that is essentially our primal mind, that basically when they're hearing things, we're always trying to find out, what was that snapping twig? Was that something that's coming to attack me? Right. So basically it's always listening for things that are different. Yep. So what you're doing is basically overwhelming anything that can basically get your attention and basically allow you to sit into a safe space and calm down and be okay. And that's makes perfect sense to me. One thing that I would do when meditating, when I was finally still and everything was quiet, when I did hear something, my mind would try to be, what was that? It immediately wanted to label it. What was it? Mm-hmm. But then I would, okay, that was my mind just doing its thing. And I would observe that and be like, it's okay to let it go. And you have to learn to basically, when those stimuluses come in, you've got to be like, okay, is it dangerous? Is it something I need to stop doing what I'm doing and handle right now? Or can I just be like, okay, that was that, and now come back? And that's the practice of meditation. And people think that they're failing if they lose that connection right away, and it's not. You have to basically learn that that's part of the process, and it's okay. Hear it, let it go, come back over and over and over again. So.
One of the best lessons I had early in my learning about meditation came from Paramahansa Yogananda, because he very clearly pointed out that the difference between meditation and sleep is that sleep is unconscious.
Right.
Meditation is conscious. You consciously get into that state. Your mind allows you, and you're aware that you're in that state, where sleep, you go into that state and your mind is not actively involved in it. So if you can sleep easily and get into the same kind of a state as what meditation creates, can you learn to get into the meditation state easily and do it consciously, right? So that I thought was a that was a pretty powerful lesson for me. And a lot of what we do it unconsciously. We aren't aware we're doing certain things. When you can learn to do it consciously, that puts you in control, right, of the circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right, one last question. If I trusted that I'm already rooted in the source of all being, what might change in how I listen, speak, or relate to other people? If you know and you recognize that you are already part of the eternal source, how might that change the way you interact with people and things and earth? And
for me, I tend to try to listen more deeply or speak more gently to people. Still working on that at times because my regular mind likes to take over. I try not to defend myself as much. I try not to always convince everybody that I know what I'm talking about, or this is the situation. They need to look at this. Any number of things. I still struggle with that at times, just from my own childhood of how I grew up myself and my relationship with myself when I was younger. So just basically it. When I feel rooted in myself, I don't feel so desperate to convince or correct or be right or any of those feelings that normally would come up. It's a much more freeing and more open to experience life and experience people and to share in this whole experience.
Yeah, it helps me dissolve fear. I have, and without the fear, it helps me to better myself, right? And it helps me to be more aware of what I'm doing, to help me meditate, to know that it's important to listen, to be a better person, to be kind, which I've always been kind, but how much more important it is to be helpful and just better in general to everybody. And that's because I know that everybody's connected. We're all one. And that's because of being connected, with the source. We're all part of that. And being aware of that has allowed me to see that we all are. So I think that's helped me see that.
I look at certain Bible stories and parables that I taught as a pastor over all the years. And I wish I knew then what I know now, because I certainly would have taught them from a very different perspective. And I do believe that Jesus is the perfect example of someone who knew and understood that he was one with the divine source. I believe he came to show his people specifically that there was a greater God, that there was a true source beyond the God that they were worshiping and serving, and that it was a God of love, not a God of vengeance and jealousy and hatred and separation. But he was able, when he would look at somebody, to see beyond what was obvious about them. There's so many people who teach about how he would eat with publicans and sinners, and he spent time with harlots and different people, and there was the woman that was taken in adultery, and he
Tax collector,
the tax collectors, and all these people that we would judge them outwardly based on what we see in them outwardly,
because they were low status in that society.
Yeah, but he was able to see beyond what was obvious with the eyes, and he knew. They didn't know it, but he knew that they were one with the source.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he healed them. That's how he would interact with them. He saw beyond what the eyes showed him. That's why he says, don't judge based on the outward appearance. because you've got to look on the inward fleshy table of the heart, which is where the source lives and dwells with us. So if I look at people from that perspective, I'm going to be significantly more compassionate and realize they just don't know.
Right.
We talk a lot about people who they don't know what they don't know. They don't know
All the
what
time.
they need because they don't know what they don't know about their circumstance or this. And it is not we haven't been, I don't believe, this is again opinion, I don't think God has given us the right to judge people in their circumstance. They are where they're supposed to be at that time. And it's not up to us to decide whether that's good or bad. It is what it is. That's who they are. That's where they are. That's what they have chosen. I do believe in free will. They've chosen to do the things they've done that have created their circumstance. And I don't like to see that for them because I love them. I don't want them to be suffering. I don't want them to do things that are going to cause them issues, but it's not my job to fix them or correct them or judge them or I want to be compassionate toward them. If they ask me an opinion, that's different. I will gladly share. I've had people ask me in the past, they said, there's something about you. There's something a little different about you and I would, wow. I said, do you really want to dig into that and know why I think or feel or believe or act? Sometimes I feel like I can bring peace to an environment. And people like that. Well, how do you do that? Not an easy answer. Not an easy answer. But if you want to know, I'll tell you what I believe. I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what puts me in a position where I think I can do that. Right? But it's really taught me compassion and patience.
Yeah.
And
need lots of patience.
Well,
my biggest
it's not our job. They are where they're supposed to be.
Right.
They are having the life.
Not just with myself. I mean, not even just relationships with other people. I mean, the relationship with myself,
Right.
Patience and grace and understanding on my own. That's been, because we talked about that last week. You can't feel compassion for another person unless you feel compassion for yourself.
Yep.
You can't love that person unless you love yourself. So start with yourself would be my advice. Work on yourself, realize where you are, who you are, and be okay with yourself. Love yourself. And that's a big step. That's a huge step because most people don't like themselves. They won't tell you that they don't love themselves. They'll say, yeah, sure I do. No, they truly don't. They find faults in themselves and they compare themselves to other people, and I'm not that. So they basically are beating themselves up internally. That's the biggest thing for me, and that was a huge step for me, is to learn to just love myself for who I am, but realize my weaknesses, realize not necessarily weaknesses, not that it makes it sound like right and wrong, realize areas where I have work to do.
Sometimes they don't even know that, though. Sometimes they don't even know they don't love themselves, and
because they're not
that reflection.
They're not aware. They're not self-aware, and that is a huge first step in this awakening process.
That's the awakening. So Carl Jung in psychology called it the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And the process of individuation, coming to understand that I'm having these feelings. Well, you've got to understand why you have feelings about this or why you have this, and you have to learn to integrate that, not repress it. If you repress it, it's like water getting dammed up. Eventually, the pressure is going to build up and it's going to explode, and it'll be worse than if you let it flow and figure out how to go with the flow of things, right?
There you go. Full circle back to the flow. I like it.
And then you've got the concepts within the Paramahansa Yogananda created the Self-Realization Fellowship Center, and the whole concept behind Kriya Yoga is self-realization, which is the same as individuation in psychology, which is the same as self-actualization, which is know thyself, be one with God. All these terms are saying the same thing, just from different directions,
different time periods, different histories, different cultures, it's all saying the same.
And not always easy. It's not easy.
No.
Self-reflection. And
one of the things we haven't touched on this, we did a little bit when we talked about the field and Lynn McTaggart, but there have been studies that have found in science what is called the God particle.
Yeah.
That primordial essence or energy
Yeah.
that exists in all creation. Now, science is never going to say, hey, guess what? We just found God. We disproved God.
Hmm.
But they're saying the same thing.
I mean, it's basically science is just trying to prove God in different ways. They're never going to actually ever do it, because once you do it, that's not it. That goes back to Taoism, and that goes back to basically anything that's like self creates that can notice itself is basically going to dissolve. It's a paradox. The whole thing is so.
And I have to say, what I love about this podcast is that it's like ending every time we do this. We end it with ...
Well, it's
like,
it never is.
There's more.
It's never ending.
It's never ending.
It's not meant to, but that's the fun of it. But that's what makes people uncomfortable, because they feel like it's something they have to accomplish and get a certificate at the end.
If you're OCD and you have to get something to conclusion all the time, this is going to drive you crazy.
Right.
We don't bring this to conclusion. This is a never-ending discussion and growth, and
just like life.
To me, that makes it that much more interesting.
Yeah. So on that note, as we bring this conversation to a close, I want to honor something that doesn't need to be explained or resolved, right? The source of all being is not something we arrive at through thought. It's something we notice when we stop trying to arrive anywhere at all. Detach from outcome. I'm finding it to be one of the most liberating things ever, right? Is to detach from an outcome and having to get something to conclusion. Let it evolve, let it naturally develop. So Joel, thank you both for your presence here today, your humility, your willingness to sit and share with these questions. I hope that you're enjoying it as much as I do, the conversation. I find that every time we get engaged in something like this, I learn from both of you, and it's always exciting for me. And to those that are listening, if this invited you even in a brief moment of quiet contemplation, let that be enough, right? I hope that it can help you get into a state where if we can just quietly sit with ourselves and allow God to speak, allow the source to speak, allow the source to acknowledge the presence within you. You don't need to carry these words forward. You can simply carry the presence within you that heard them. And with that, the space between continues. Thank you for sharing this sacred space with us. As you return to your day, may you carry whatever resonated, whatever stirred, whatever invited you more deeply into presence. The space between heaven on earth is a companion to awakening heaven on earth, where the teachings are explored through reflection and lived experience. If this conversation spoke to you, I invite you to sit with it, breathe with it, and allow it to unfold in your own way and time. Until we meet again, may you walk gently and remember the unity that already lives within you.